Welcome everyone to another episode of the Represented series. This is our Fireside Edition with Shehara Wooten. I am extremely excited to bring Shehara on today. So welcome.
Yes, thank you so much, Dana. I'm so excited for this conversation.
No, absolutely. So excited to have you back for this fireside chat. I know you've got a plethora of things for us to talk about, so I'm really excited to dig into all the things that you've got going on, because you've been doing some amazing work within the industry and just also externally, and we'll get into a lot of that as well. But before we get started, please take a moment to tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. So my name is Shehara Wooten, and I am originally from Columbus, Ohio. So born and raised in Columbus. I went to the Ohio State University, and with my love of math, I decided to become an engineer. So I became an electrical and computer engineer. And then soon after graduating, I decided that I needed to really figure out what my purpose was in life. And I really became interested in financial services and financial literacy. And that bug really became something when I was 25, living in Philly, doing my engineering job. And I remember going to an Urban League Young Professional event, and it was a financial empowerment event in Philadelphia. And I went, and that was the first time I really interacted with a financial advisor. So I interacted with a bank financial advisor. There were some insurance people there. And I was so excited to just kind of, see them and see what I could do. Because at 25, you just have your whole life in front of you. And I walked up to the advisor and I said, I'm 25 and I want to retire at 30. So can you make that happen, basically?
and that was it.
Yeah, that was it. It was just like, and he looked at me kind of dumbfounded. And then I was just like, so, so we ended up meeting. And at the time, I knew 5 years was a short period of time, but 30 was old to me. So 30 was ancient. It is not ancient,
No, I was going to say it is not. And 35 is also not ancient.
Exactly. And the age that I am now, which I'm not going to say, is not ancient. So
listen, don't worry, you are in good company here.
Right,
So
right.
It's all good. I know it's like those ages seem so old.
They do.
And it's funny how I still feel so young, right? I'm sure you feel the same. Like we still have so much we want to accomplish.
Yeah. And I think what it was for me is I just didn't really know my purpose, and I didn't really fully understand what I was called to do here on earth. And so I ended up reading a book, Purpose Driven Life. And then I ended up reading another book called What Color is Your Parachute? And after reading those and praying and all this stuff, I just decided I want to be a financial advisor. But my experience with that financial advisor wasn't good either. So that became the catalyst for me to say, you know what, I need to learn this on my own. And I just really got interested in it. And I don't know why, that didn't work out. I'm not sure. But, I look back now and I'm like, well, maybe he just didn't know how to help me open an account. It was the weirdest thing. But it just, that's what drew me into what I do today. And now I watched a YouTube video a couple weeks ago, and a woman, she's 92 at the time of that taping. I think she's 96 now, a doctor. And she's a doctor in New York, still going to work every day. And that's like my motto. Like, if I can do the things that I enjoy,
Mhm.
Retirement is not so much like retired tomorrow or retire last week or yesterday, but it's more so me finding what I enjoy and but just making sure that I'm saving up and so that the fruits of my labor are being be that I can recognize that, but just having the choice to stop working whenever I want it. So my definition of retirement is definitely different now compared
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
that 25-year-old.
Yeah. And I feel like just the word and the concept in itself has just really evolved over time where it's not really retirement. And even when I was practicing, I used to talk to my clients more about financial shifts, right? It's like we just go through
Yes.
these different paths in our lives. And I love the fact that you really talked about leading in to your purpose, because I feel like sometimes we get caught up, especially as women, where we're not necessarily leaning in and giving ourselves permission for those things to be okay. So I would
Yeah.
love to just talk more about that, right? I love that word purpose. And how did you truly lead into that and really give yourself permission to do so, and just fully wrap your arms around it?
Yeah, yeah, that's such a good point. When I was in college, I decided to do engineering because I was kind of pushed into that. It's a good career. You can make good money and you're good at math. So I just kind of took all that. And at that age, you just kind of take what the adults tell you. But when I got out of college, and even while I was doing the coursework, and I love engineers because I work mostly with STEM professionals, but for me, I knew this wasn't it for me. I looked at the fellow engineers working on the oscilloscope and doing these different things, and I was like, I don't see myself doing that when I'm older. And I had to really come to grips. And fortunately, which at the time I may not have been appreciative of it, but the work that I was doing, I just didn't enjoy. And that made me dig deeper into, well, what is it that you're gonna enjoy then? And I was 25, and actually it was about 26, 27 when I started to really look into things. Um and I just was like, there's gotta be more. There's gotta be more to life. I shouldn't 30 years from now be sitting here and just made money and just didn't enjoy the work that I did because I'm doing this 8 hours a day most of my life. And so that's what caused me to dig deeper. And then, like I said, the learning about financial literacy and trying to get my hands on every piece of literature. My dad gave me Think and Grow Rich, and he also put into my lap the Robert Kiyosaki series, like purchase that for me, like how to, the cash flow quadrant. And I had already read Rich Dad Poor Dad, but I just really just started to just suck up as much as I could. And I was like, well, maybe I can help others do this because, we don't learn this in school.
Mhm.
And I'm learning this and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I've always had an interest because even in my internships, I would put away in the 401k, but I put it away in a 401k at like 19, 20 years old, but I didn't know about an emergency fund. I mean, the light bulb that went off when I learned about that and learned about some of those things that you would think we should all know about, just like we know how to do algebra and calculus. So,
Yeah,
um,
you would think, right? It's like the assumptions that we make, especially just even before becoming professionals in this industry, it's just like
yeah.
you assume that people who make a lot of money know everything. Like I was so blown away when I was 20, started in banking and realizing that you don't know the difference between like routing an account number. What did you just ask me? And I'm looking at the amount they have in the bank, and it was just not
It
like
was
it's
not
not adding up.
true.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's like there's this what I've started to learn too, and we can get into why at the book too, because I started to realize there's a language to money and they make it, and I'm gonna just say but they make it intimidating. And it shouldn't be because this is how we're gonna live life. And so, like you talked about the routing and account number, some people get fearful, like they don't want to talk that language, and we just gotta, as financial professionals. We help people, be more comfortable with that. But we just got to make it more normalized too, as
Oh,
well.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Just the
Yeah.
conversation around money. So how do you do that within your practice and how you work with your clients? How do you normalize that conversation? I know I'm also excited to get into the book that you wrote as well. And I'm
Yeah.
sure that kind of intertwined into all of those things. But how do you make people really feel comfortable to just open up?
Yeah, great question. So for me, I have a process. I'm really into life-centered planning. And so and when I used to work at my broker dealer, I felt like I was, asking questions, and I just love asking questions. So when I started my own firm, I called it Your Story Financial because I felt like everybody has a story that they want to create. And it all, if we were to look back over our life as being a book, and we look over all the chapters, what is it that you want that story to look like? And so that was the driving force for me. And I started to dig deeper. And before I even knew that there was anything called life planning or life-centered planning, that I was already thinking along those lines. And so part of my process when people do come on board as financial planning clients is we go through and I learn about their past. I learn about, their first money memory. What is it that, has impacted you, and how are you dealing with money presently? And then how do you want that to look in the future? And that's been super helpful in us having those conversations so that I can understand the context behind these goals that they have, and the monetary goals that they have. Cause it's not just about the quantitative. It's not just about that number, but it's about, what does that mean to you, when you reach your goals? And that's how we have those conversations that opens up to be able to have conversations in a real time format. So it's not like I'm, okay, you need financial literacy and budgeting and this and retirement and paying down debt and all that. We do it as needed based on their lifestyle, where they're at now. And so that is how, you know, I think it just resonates more when you're going through and you're in the thick of the financial challenge or the financial strategy that you're trying to implement, and you're getting education on something that is real and true to you. So that's how we work together. We start off with that, and then obviously over time we'll work on the other pieces that maybe they may not feel as necessary, but in my mind, it is okay. This is what we still need to chat about. But it's really important, I believe, for people to have a connection to the financial literacy. So there's a place for learning everything. But when people hire financial planners, you're now looking at something that's connected to you and your financial story personally. And that really helps things to resonate and people to make changes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like the change, like getting them to the change factor is the
Yes,
best part, right? It's like, we want you to do the things and we're hopeful and going to coach you through that, but then it's
right.
the execution, right?
Absolutely.
The part where it actually all comes together and it makes sense and they're starting to do that and they're also seeing the results. So
Mhm.
let's kind of get to your book, right? You
Yes,
have a book called In the Meantime. And I just want to spend
yes.
some time kind of talking about that, how that book idea kind of came to you and just the overall process of it, right? I think it's a great
Oh, yeah.
title. So tell us a little bit about what that title means.
Yes. So, what drew me to write the book is over time, I just started to see that there were some external forces that were holding a lot of my clients back, or it just seemed like it just was different than another client, or even looking at fellow colleague financial planners, and maybe the majority of their clientele were white males or older white couples. And it took a while to admit this, but over time I started to realize there's a difference between black wealth and white wealth. And over time, I statistics came my way, and I learned that, by 2053, it's predicted that black wealth will go to zero. And I was just like really disturbed by that statistics. And I decided that, what is it that I can do about it? So obviously I'm working with people one-on-one. I work with all nationalities, all races, all ethnicities. But then I started to realize, okay, well, what is this that's causing this wealth gap? It's also 228 years between Black wealth and white wealth before Black wealth is going to catch up to white wealth. And I just thought, wow, okay, there's got to be something to this. And it's not just there's no financial literacy. It's got to be more to that. So I started to really dig into, okay, lack of reparations, people, ancestors just coming off of, we talked about Juneteenth. We just had Juneteenth. I mean, not even knowing that, that they were free at this point. And there were never any reparations, went through Reconstruction, and then that got, fizzled, and that fizzled away. But then I was encouraged by the fact that I'm here today. Even despite and in spite of not ever getting any type of help. And then I started to see other communities that got help historically. And so it wasn't just that we were looking for a handout. We just looking for a repairing of what was done wrong. And
just a piece of the chair.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, we built the country, so can we get some recognition monetarily, please? We helped build the economics here and made this country an economic powerhouse. And there was nothing provided to the people that did it. So that really struck me. And so in the meantime, I just said, well, in the meantime, and it came up to me, I was just like, well, in the meantime, until we get reparations, until we get our justice, what do we do as a people to make sure that, okay, if they say, okay, we're going to give you and the next generation, 5,000, 10,000, whatever a month for the rest of your lives to eternity, do we know what to do with that? Or is it going to just get spent and now go back into the economy? So the point of the book is to say, in the meantime, own your financial narrative. We all do have a responsibility to understand finances, understand how it works. And so I put financial empowerment tips in there. Then I also put in inspiring stories of folks that have overcome and been able to do things that are amazing financially, despite never getting any type of reparations. So there's stories out there. So in the meantime, what is it that we can do? What is it that, how can you own your own financial narrative? And then I also sprinkle in the history, because it was interesting to me as well to find out, well, why is it that way? Why is it that way? And really give some people a sigh of relief that, maybe all that stress or things that you're dealing with it's because it did come from it's a very systemic. And so, so just to have that knowledge that, okay, this is the deal. But for me, that kind of information motivates me. So if I'm like, you put a challenge in front of me, then I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to change that, and I tell people, insert a plot twist. Like, please tell me that you can't do this. Please tell me that, Black wealth is going to go to zero by 2053. So we can change that, and we change the narrative. And so just putting us in a position, and the principles that I share are universal. So I do have, all ethnicities reading my book, but it is very much geared towards the Black community. But the principles are in there that are universal, and everybody can learn from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is so important, right? The only way for us to kind of start to move on and also know that things aren't in our heads, right? Yeah. And we're not making things up, right? History was history, and there's a lot of reasons why things have happened the way that they have happened, why the wealth gap is where it is, and it's not anything that we have necessarily been able to control, although outside forces will tell us that we put ourselves in these positions, right? And we
Right.
know that's not the case. And we also know that, there are people like you in this industry and externally who are also just doing the work to ensure that we take up space, and we take
Yeah.
up space financially, and get financially empowered and motivated, and also just build that wealth. Because although
Yeah.
you're helping people to build wealth, you having this book in the world, and I'm sure you'll have more to come, will just kind of put that into existence, right?
Yeah.
There's a prequel.
I'm gonna
Prequel.
I'm gonna
Oh
marinate
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, the remake. Right? I know you just kind of finished this one up, and it's like, Dana, I need a break. I need a vacation first.
Right, right, right.
But the wealth, right? That's
Yes.
all part of your wealth plan too, right? Having this book
Yes.
be out into the world, having people purchase this book, also puts Black wealth in the face of things as we start to take ownership and do all sorts of things. So, what does having this book in the world truly mean to you from a wealth perspective? Because I'm sure a lot of people also want to know how they can, have a book, or they have something to say, or even just kind of finding their voice.
Yes. So I had a business coach, and it was just one of those things where she was just like, you got to get a book out there. And I'm like, okay. And so that really pushed me to really start thinking, okay, how do I do this? And it was like a far off type of idea. But in 2020, I was just like, I gotta do this. I gotta make it happen. And in the beginning of 2020, I spoke with my business coach. I have a study group with some of my colleagues, and actually I won't say 2020, it was 2019. And I said, okay, I'm gonna have some type of book written, and that never happened, right? So I wasn't as intentional. But then in the beginning of 2020, I said, I looked at one of my colleagues and I said, you wrote a book, how did you do that? And she was a part of a program, and that really helped me and so I decided to join the program, and it just really helped me because it was one of those things to get that guidance, and I didn't know where to begin and where to start. And I didn't realize until after writing the book how much a legacy it is to put your words on paper. And you're creating that legacy. Like, this book will be out there for generations to come. It is a part of, I would say, generational wealth that I'm creating. And I won't necessarily pinpoint that. I think generational wealth doesn't necessarily always mean monetary, but it's your words getting out there into the world, and your thoughts and your perspective, and people will look back like, oh, she wrote about that, or she thought this. And so it's a really interesting process to have written and completed a book. But while I was in the thick of it, it was a lot of work. So I
I was
was
gonna say, how do you feel now?
right, right, right. So, yeah. So now I feel great, but a little tired. It's like I went to the finish line, and I was
Uh-huh.
running and pushing towards that finish line, but I kind of just wanted to lay out over the finish line. So
Like, I'm here. All
yeah,
right, I'm
I've
good.
done it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Collect my medal, and now I'm just gonna go. I'm just gonna go to the break.
Exactly, right? And it was just like, oh my goodness, because people were asking me while I was in the midst of it, like,
Mhm.
how are you doing this? And colleagues were asking, but like I said, I have a program that I was a part of. It's called Creator Institute, and it started off where they were working with college students, and was through Georgetown University. And these college students, through Professor Eric Custer, would come out. The goal was to come out with a manuscript by the end of your semester. So these were freshmen in college and sophomores, and coming out with a book before they graduated college. So after a while, this program became very popular. He was able to extend that out to other universities around the country, and then extend that out to professionals and graduate students. So that's how I became a part of just getting the book done, because initially I was just writing on Google Doc. And I was, when I was driving, I would record certain things, and I just wasn't motivated. I was like, okay, how much more can I write? I don't know what else to write other because I knew that I wanted to write something on financial literacy, but honestly, I was getting a little bored with the topic myself. So I was just like, I don't know what else to do. And so the book, going through the program, helped me to expound upon my topic. That's where I got the idea to do interviews. So I did primary and secondary interviews. So I was able to incorporate real life people in the book who were doing things. So that helped me to expand my content, and then I was able to, with their guidance, do more research, expand my research, and so they have a whole formula, and it was amazing. And um, so I'm one that does not like to write. So for all of you who think, well, I don't like to write, so I'm never writing a book.
And I
Well,
was like,
I'm that
that's out.
person. What did you say, Dana?
No, I said that's out. I mean, I do like to write, but it's like you think about the writing, the amount of
Yes,
writing. Like I have a paper I need to be working on, and I'm just like,
I know,
this
right?
is this is tiring, and I'm only at maybe like 6 or 8 pages. So it's like
Yeah.
the thought, I think, for a lot of people to
Yes,
write hundreds of pages and put all
yes.
those words together and make sure they're succinct. I mean, that is definitely overwhelming,
It's
right?
overwhelming. It is. And we had to do, it was a 10-month program. So
Mhm.
basically the whole goal, I started October 2020. I interviewed for it in July, I think August 2020. But I got in October. And so they said by August 2021, you will have a book published. And um, what I realized is not everybody stays on that track, but I did stay on the track. It did help me that we had COVID, to be honest with you, because every Saturday, every Sunday, I wrote, and I just started typing words. And their process was really good because they said, don't even judge your words, just get it on paper. And then every week I had a meeting, up until the first 25,000 words. I had a meeting with my developmental editor. So I was paired up with several editors, and that first editor was really crucial, the developmental editor, and we met up every week. So that kept me on task with my word count and my content. And we didn't have chapters or anything. At this point, there's no chapters. I was just, from October to February 2021, I was just getting words on paper. And it made it very freeing for me because I didn't have to sit there and analyze what I was writing. So that process was really awesome. And just get it on paper. And there was a lot of remarks given to me by the developmental editor during that time. But even then, I wasn't evaluating his remarks. That was the whole thing. And then at some point, we did start to, okay, you need to develop this sentence, or you need to add more to that story. What else happened there? And that type of thing. And so once we got that, the first phase done, it was really nice because then we ended up getting our works to, I believe it was an acquiring editor. So many different terms that I learned, but I had about five or six editors before the book was published. And so the acquiring editor, that was the person that really looked at the content, and really that's when we had an opportunity to go back and forth. Well, I did mean this, or yeah, maybe this should get changed. But if there was something that I really felt like I needed to have in there, even though they didn't necessarily agree, we were, that we were still able to keep that content in there if you had a good enough argument for it. So, and then from there, it was like, now it's time to develop your chapters. And, chapter development was it was like a whole science from the way that they, taught us. But it was really a neat process. And then I had another marketing editor, and during that time, because the Creator Institute then hands you off to the publisher, and so I could have gone the traditional route, which would be to fund my project myself. But I ended up going the crowdfunding route. So they had two opportunities. So the crowdfunding route is more like making your book, a business. And so making it where people are going to participate. So it was awesome because to get the book into paperback format, I needed to raise $5,000 to get the book into a hardcover. I needed to raise, I believe, like 6,500, and then it was like 8,000 to get an audio format. So I was able in a 30-day period, and from April 1st to or somewhere in April to like the beginning of May, I was able to raise over $8,500 to get my book.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And that's what helped me to get my book in this paperback format, which I have here. And then also it's in hardcover, which from what I understood, not a lot of authors get to hardcover. And then also to audio. I'm now on Audible. So I narrated the book and then that was a whole process. So what happened was I was able to take people along with me on the journey. So all those people who supported and backed me, they were a part of my community, and I kept them up to date. And they got their book, but they got more than that. So those are my original supporters, and they're actually named one by one in the back of the book. So it was really awesome to pull people in. But I was able to pre-sell quite a few books, and that was awesome. And they all got a signed copy. It was a wonderful process. And like I said, I just completed here in the month of May. I believe it was May that I completed the audiobook and it got published.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of new to audio. I feel like I'm almost embarrassed to say this. I'm such a book person. Like I love a book.
Yes.
Like for me, a book is an entire experience. I love to hold it. I like to sit, go outside, read, have that quiet space.
Yes.
I recently, like very recently, just got into listening to audiobooks. I think I did my first one last summer.
Wow. Yeah.
You know what? Actually, I'm okay. I'm okay with that. Actually, I'm very proud that I, have my whole experience. I know some people just like love audiobooks, but for me, it's a whole thing.
Yeah, I get that. And that was one thing we learned. Yeah, that's awesome. That was the one thing we learned about the hardcover. It's a whole thing for people to get a hardcover book. And so,
I'm one of those people.
One of those. Yeah. So that was fantastic to be able to offer that to people. I will say I'm an e-reader person. So I like reading my books on Kindle or an e-reader. So it is available there too. But I like to highlight, and I know some people, they like their paperback or hardcover and they like to highlight it in person, but I just like I'm one of those, I like the e-reader version. Yep. So it's really interesting, the preferences, but it's available in all preferences and all.
Right. Everyone has their choice. There's some people like me, the audio, the e-readers.
Yes.
Everyone can kind of touch the book in some way and have that amazing dynamic experience that you've been able to walk them through. And then also just the journey, right? The journey will continue to live on for years and years, and people in various areas and hopefully globally will really start to understand the uniqueness of their financial selves and the stories, and also be able to add, their own stories as they're reading, your book and then after. And I think that's a lot of what you poured into this, which is really great, just to, be able to empower other people to utilize their voice to write stories and to write narratives. In creating that space as an author, right? Like you are now an author, and that's a title that I think a lot more, and I'm hopeful a lot more Black women will have in certain spaces. I think there was actually just an article I saw on LinkedIn about talking about Black-owned businesses, well, not businesses, but within books, and really changing the look and feel of that. So it's nice to see more publications going out.
That's powerful. That is powerful. And like you said, it's a process, it's a journey. But it's something about getting it to the final product. And that's the key. So anybody that has a book already written, let's just get it out there. There's ways to do this. There's ways to get your voice out there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And before we hop off, I wanted to ask you. Well, actually, I have two last questions. The first one, I know you talked a lot about having an executive coach or a business coach, and I feel like a lot of people don't necessarily lean into the power of that accountability. Like you had accountability for writing your book, you had accountability just in the way that you run your business and in probably other areas of your life. You talked about your also colleague group that you have. How has that really shaped the way you've been able to just run your business, scale, and probably just even grow personally?
Yeah, it's so helpful, especially being an entrepreneur that's solo. I just added a part-time virtual assistant, but for the last 5, 6 years, it's just been me. And so I do believe in the power of community. I believe in the power of being able to bounce our ideas off of others. You just never know. Like it's like they can help you see your blind spots. So just like with hiring a financial planner, they help you see your blind spots. You know a lot, right? But when you have someone else helping you, they see other things that can help guide you quicker. And so there's something about doing things in community, and not being by yourself. And honestly, that is another aspect of the book too, is having all those interviews with all those different people. I tell people in the book, that's your super community. So if you don't have anybody as an example, then you can tap into these stories to help encourage you and inspire you to do things. And then over time, grow and find a way to gain relationship. But I just feel like, and I thought about how pro athletes, they're amazing at what they do. They're next level, but they still have somebody watching them and coaching them. And even when I was, in high school, I played the clarinet and really enjoyed it, but it was something about going to private lessons, every week, like that honed everything into me. And it also made me accountable because I had something that I
Okay, well,
needed
I
to
didn't
do.
have that same experience. No, I just want to jump in there. I also played the clarinet, and it wasn't working out well for
You
me.
said it was
It
horrible,
was
huh?
not working out well.
Really?
I had to realize the things that I was just not going to excel at later in life. But I'm glad that you had an amazing experience.
Right, exactly. Well,
Happy for you.
that was my thing with track. I did not excel at track. And so we all have our own thing, but that was where I started to understand I need help. I need somebody to help me, to guide me, to see my blind spots. And just ever since then, I'm always looking out. We can't do this by ourselves. And even still, there might be areas that I don't seek help in that I need to get help in. So, but I do believe that we always need to find a way to get help, whether it's our health, whether it's our wealth, whether it's writing a book or doing a big project, or having a business and working with others to get ideas, because it just helps you go faster. I think there's a saying, and I'm probably going to mess it up, but if you want to go, just go alone. But if you want to go faster and farther, go with others. And I just kind of paraphrase that, but it resonates. We can't do this by ourselves. We can't do this life by ourselves. And our life is not just our career. Our life is not just, just our working out or our looks. It's everything. It's everything in one. So we have to seek help and then also offer help too.
Oh yeah, that's a whole nother thing. We'll have to bring you back so we can unpack all of that, because that's a whole nother fireside.
It is, yeah.
That's a whole
You're
other
right.
fireside. We're gonna put a pin in that one. So
Yeah.
everyone come back, because I'm gonna hold you to that. We're gonna discuss that part. That
Yes.
part, period.
Oh,
And the last thing I want to ask you, and I kind of think I might have a sense of this, but what
mhm.
brings you joy?
What brings me joy? I don't know why I'm pausing though, but what brings me joy is just really honestly being able to have freedom freedom over, for me personally, over my schedule, over my life, over the ability to be able to move in this world the way I want to move. And I think that that's really helpful to me. I started to look at wealth and really start to unpack that personally. And one of the things that I find, even if I'm thinking, oh man, my business may not be where I want it to be necessarily, or if I'm evaluating and I'm like, oh, I feel like I could do more. But I also am super happy that I have time and I can control my time for the most part in terms of how I set my schedule and how I work with others. And that I really am so thankful for that. I'm thankful for being an entrepreneur and being able to define how I'm going to move about in this world rather than the pressures for me of being in a corporate environment and being told where to be and what to do and how to do it. And then having a carrot put before me, like, okay, I reached that carrot and then they moved the carrot. And it's just like, well, what happened? So
Right. So then you got a teacher, then a water bottle.
yes, exactly. And then I got to
Then it was
watch.
a mug and a watch.
Right. And it was just, yeah. So something about that freedom has totally brought me a lot of joy. And I've started to see that even lately. And it's easy even for entrepreneurs to not have that freedom. And I'm still working more and more to create more of that freedom and what that means to me as well. Yeah.
Listen. all of that. I mean, there is just, yes, so much there. And thank you for being on this chat with me today. We appreciate it, learning so much about you. And I know that a lot of people and whoever is listening really took away a lot. There were so many gems dropped, so many inspirational moments of all the things, right? Just, putting yourself out there, owning your voice and your narrative, and sharing that with others and bringing other people not just along for the ride, but really within the ride, right? I think those are two different things when you really pull people in to the life and the work that you're creating. So thank you for all that you do internally and externally within this industry of financial services, and so excited to see what's next on your journey. So we will definitely have you back for another fireside. I know you'll be back for some more educational talks, I'm sure sooner than later, but continued success.
Thank
always,
you. I appreciate
always.
it, Tina.
So tell people where they can find you.
Yes. So I spend most of my time in terms of social media on Instagram and then also LinkedIn. So you can find me on Instagram at Money and Moves. And then on LinkedIn, you can type out my name right there, Shehara Wooten. But it is linkedin.com/in/Shehara. I just use my first name to keep it simple for folks. But find me in either one of those places, and we can have a conversation.
Awesome. And of course, do not forget, you can find In the Meantime wherever you like to experience your book.
Absolutely. And I just put my book in a New Orleans bookstore, so I'm excited to get these local boutique bookstores as well.
Absolutely. So let's put that out into the universe. If you are a Black-owned bookstore or just local bookstore in general,
yes,
absolutely reach out to Shehara to make sure you have her book on your shelves. So again, thank you for coming on. We'll be excited to welcome you back. For all those that are watching, make sure you catch up on more episodes of the Represented series, and we look forward to seeing you again. Take care.